What's going on, everybody? I'm your boy Retro Bliss, and you are on Retro Bliss Rewind, and we're going to have a good show tonight. We have Lewis Hill from MuddyVision, and as always, I have my special co-host Mike from Mike's Gaming Gala, and Brian from BD RetroMods, and my special guest Lewis Hill. What's going on, fellas? How you guys doing today?
Good. Hey, all good.
Good. All right. Well, for those of you who may be subs to the channel and follow my live streams, you may know that I've been streaming games from Lewis Hill and from MuddyVision in the last couple of days, and I've been thoroughly enjoying them. And some of them I've had already. Specifically, Keystone Koppers I've had for quite a while. I had purchased it from Atari Age, and I got a review copy also from Lewis. And for those of you who don't know what that is, it's the 7800, his 7800 take on the 2600 version of Keystone Koppers, and it's an amazing game. I really like that version because first of all, the graphics are off the chain; they're just amazing. But also, you can pick what levels you're at. Let's see what other options are in that game. The music
is a nice touch.
Yeah, the music is a nice touch. And overall the gameplay is just phenomenal. I just love it. So but they overall they're really good games, and I really wanted to have Lewis on the show. I've been wanting to for a while, and so I was thrilled to have him agree to be on. So I want to ask you, how did you get started programming?
That's a great question, Phil. Probably have to go back about 40 years for the answer to that. Back into the depths of time when I was about 6 or 7 years old, and I started tinkering about with the Commodore VIC-20 with a 16K RAM expansion. I hasten to add, that's where I sort of learned about programming and what have you. I think everybody got the big box introduction to Basic Part 1 with the tape and all of the little card game type Petsky graphics that you could type in and all that stuff. That's where I started. And then ZX Spectrum later, that's more of a UK European platform. You didn't really get that in the US really. And then C64 did a bit of tinkering there. 16-bit era, kind of ST and Amiga, Stos and Amos. Did a bit of bits and pieces there, but nothing that was ever really what you would call a game. It was just tinkering. And it was really when I got onto the Atari a few years back, and I found all the resources over at Atari Age, and I figured, wow, this is now accessible, and I could probably do something here.
Oh, excuse me. Right as you finished, I started coughing.
Perfect timing.
Yeah. So if I didn't mention this, the Atari 7800 and the Atari 2600 are the systems that you basically are programming for now. Now, what I find interesting, where are you from?
From the UK.
From the UK. Now, the 7800 and the 2600 it wasn't really much of a thing over there, was it?
I'd say the 2600 was huge. That was really big.
Oh, it was? It
was a bit behind the US in terms of its popularity. I mean, it kicked off in the US 77, 78, I think. I didn't get my 2600 until about 82. But I remember getting that on Christmas morning. I had it was a Vader, a 6-switch Vader, I think it was, 4-switch Vader. And I got it with, it came with Centipede. That was the packing. And it died within hours. So my dad took it back to the shop on Boxing Day.
Really?
Yeah, literally the day after Christmas, my dad takes it back to this big superstore where he got it from, equivalent of like a Sears or something like that. And they just swapped it. But I forgot to put the Centipede cart back in the box. So he came back with a Junior, 2600 Junior, because they'd just been released as well, with Pac-Man. So I ended up with Pac-Man and Centipede. So I had two games to play, yeah.
Phil has something to say about Pac-Man, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, let's just say that's not one of my favorite games for the 2600. But go on.
Well, in the UK, they were smart though. They actually just packed it in with the console instead of trying to sell it outright.
Yeah, at least you didn't have to pay for it. But I'm not bitter about it.
Yeah, I don't know anybody that had a 2600 who actually paid for Pac-Man. So everybody got it as a pack-in. It was the pack-in for years, and it was Combat, then it was Centipede, and then it was Pac-Man forever.
Well, now you know somebody who paid for Pac-Man.
Yeah, with like $40 for it back in, what was it, 81 or 82, something like that. I can't remember what year it was. You guys probably weren't even a thing back then. Well, you guys were a thing, but it was like
a young
diapers or something.
We were younger things, but yeah, we existed.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 7800 wasn't hugely popular. I mean, I picked up one of those long after it had been off sale. A local superstore place was selling them off for like 30 quid in a box.
Yeah. And I mean, it wasn't even hugely popular here. The 7800, obviously more common here, but I know, especially for the 2600, there are loads and loads and loads of PAL cartridges out there. There are tons of clone systems from Germany, France. It was a big thing in Europe for sure.
Yeah, I think Australia as well. I think they had I think that was PAL as well. They had the PAL 2600s over there. So yeah.
Yep, and South America. I think Brazil was also PAL at the time.
But at least you guys got the better 7800 controller. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's better than what we got. Yeah.
The Euro pad. Yeah, they're
yeah, like I said, it's not
they're not awful.
Yeah.
The actual pain line sticks. I mean, my 2600 Junior actually came with one of those, and they were. I've actually got one, and I got one out the other day and tried it. They're not as bad as everyone says, surely. No, they're far worse.
Yeah, right.
They are horrific. It's if Satan designed a joystick, that's what he would come up with. They are horrible.
I love that. I'm gonna have to steal that phrase in the future.
The Euro, the CX78s, I think they are the Euro pads.
Yeah,
they're not bad. They're not bad.
Yeah, I mean
they're not great, but they're not bad.
They're not. I mean, again, with what you had at the time, it worked. But I mean, obviously, an NES controller was 100 times better than.
Sure beats a telephone with a nub on the top.
I never could get my head around those things. I mean, what were they thinking?
What's worse about these ones is that because the joystick is at the top and it's so stiff, it always feels like it's pulling out of your hand.
Yeah. No, I'm not sure.
I guess. I've only used them a couple of times, but they feel a little unbalanced. They don't feel.
Yes, definitely.
Heavy. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you can say that for all the second gen controllers. I mean, I'm not sure what any of them were thinking when they made them back then. So
I've never played a new one, but the ones that I've played, it's just they're not smooth. You just when you're moving them around, it's just like they're just real stiff and awkward to try to move around. So I never liked them. So
the best thing, I mean, I've used a few aftermarket controllers with the 7800, and I found getting an adapter and like a Sega Genesis, Sega Mega Drive pad, they work quite well. They're just really nice controllers. They fit nice in your hand, and
I wanted to show everybody some of the box art. Now, I only could find box art for 6 of your games. You probably have more. I'm not sure. But 2048, EXO, A.R.T.I, Keystone Koppers, Daredevil, and Tyre Trax. Now, I want to say something about Daredevil and Tyre Trax. I really like the box art on those because it reminds me so much of the Activision box art,
especially with the rainbows.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean,
it's just reminiscent of the Activision genre. So
And that was entirely accidental, if you can believe that.
I'm sure.
Which I was going to say, because obviously, given the title you go with your brand, MuddyVision, and obviously a lot of the games you released have been Activision heavy. I mean, so I think, needless to say, you're definitely an Activision fan of that period.
Oh, huge. I mean, those guys were, the closest thing to, in that era. They were the rock stars of that era. For gamer geeks like me. I mean, they're people like David Crane, Dan Kitchen, Gary Kitchen. They were cranking out games that you wouldn't have thought possible on the 2600 at that point in time. At least that was my perspective.
With their sunsets and their Yeah,
that is almost like a thing in itself. The Activision sunset. I mean, that's it's an Activision game as soon as you see that. Yeah,
I just love it. Now R.T, I guess that's how you might say A.R.T.I. I don't know. I didn't know what it was. I actually, when we talked, I had ordered these from Atari Age, which I still don't have, and I haven't gotten my order. I haven't received my order from Atari Age that I ordered. I ordered 2 orders over 8 months ago. I still don't have. I digress, but when I mentioned that I ordered these, I really didn't know what I was getting. All I knew that I was getting was a MuddyVision game, and I knew that was going to be good. And so when I told you I was going to get these, and I wanted to play them, and I started playing, I'm like, it's Hero. It's Hero.
Not only is it Hero, it is my favorite version of Hero. For one, at least, I mean, obviously it looks great. You've got different environments and stuff like that.
I'm going to guess Mike's going to talk about controls.
That's right, because in the regular Hero, I blow myself up with dynamite all the time. But here, I've got a separate button for it, so I don't accidentally detonate all the time.
Yes, that's right. That's right. You don't have to pull down and then move. You can just hit the button and then walk away. It's really good. I know.
Hero was one of my favorite games on the 2600, and I played other versions as well. Though I think there was a pretty decent version for the 64 and the 8-bits, the Atari 8-bits. But the one thing I hated, as you said, Mike, it was the controls. Whether it was the taking off and the hovering, you'd fly into a bloody wall, or it was the dynamite or whatever it was. And I thought, you know what, I'd like to make a game that's like Hero, but my take on it, and with just better controls.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that works for you.
It most definitely works for me.
No, and honestly, I mean, because I'm with you, Hero was, probably one of my more favorite. I mean, I got a lot of Atari 2600 games that I like, but Hero was one of my favorites. But same issue where if I play Hero now, I find myself playing it a lot more on just either the ColecoVision or the 5200, just because of that fact of having the 2 separate buttons. But again, it's great. Your version is amazing. I said I played the demo of it here, prior to the show and loved it. And again, the controls scheme is perfect with the 7800, and especially when you're playing it with like a D-pad or an arcade stick, things like that. So,
not to mention, you're the guy that rescues Lara Croft and Indiana Jones and all those explorers stuck in the caves.
Mike, I don't know what you're talking about. Any similarity to those other characters is purely coincidental.
Well, another thing too is because I only streamed for about an hour, so obviously I didn't get to play through the game, but I had gotten through. Was it South Africa as the first level? And
South America.
I'm sorry. Excuse-moi. Operation Shutdown. He put a comment in the video, and he said, "You're the hero of South." Yeah, I thought that was really cool that you had split them up into sections like that. That was really a nice touch.
When I'm working on projects, I usually start out with a really small idea, with for a game, for a concept, for mechanics to make that game work. My biggest problem when I'm developing a game is I think, wouldn't it be cool if we could theme this like this, and then we'll have another level that's themed like that, and I end up running away with my graphical budget, and that's what happened with A.R.T.I. It was like we started off in South America. Then I thought, wouldn't it be cool if we went to Egypt and was in the pyramids? So then you're in a pyramid. Then the third area, I don't know if you guys have seen that. It's I was playing through the other day for a video for someone else. I was making a video for a review, and I had to play the game for about 3 hours to get to the third zone. I'm really crap at my own games, which is a really embarrassing thing. But the third
That's
area is
far more common than you think.
the third area is kind of like ancient Greece, ancient Rome themed, with columns and stuff like that. But I normally work with a team of testers who I would have to say they are an absolute godsend. Steve Ramirez, Jesse Hardesty, and Robert Tacito. These guys, they absolutely murder every build that I send them. They find creative ways to absolutely screw my shit up, and I couldn't be more thankful for it. Because they find bugs that I would never even think to look for. Those guys are just they're evil to my code, but I love them for it.
Well, no, like you said, though, I mean, that's what you need, though. You don't want people testing it and just say, oh, it's amazing. Not really. I mean, that's the whole point of having them test it, because you want them to find those problems before all of a sudden you start making physical carts and then crap, there's a big bug that now it's too late to do anything about.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I have a couple questions and maybe some concerns for maybe future games that you may be working on, because I got a feeling that you're not done. I emulate a lot. Okay. Would you ever consider selling your games in digital format? Because I know that you have a MuddyVision Facebook and Instagram contact area there. Let's go there first. Let me ask you that question first.
So digital was something I really thought about for a long time before I went ahead and started doing that in limited quantities. And there were some titles I had not released for a while. I didn't want to cannibalize cart sales, but at the same time, there were people over in Europe that wanted to play the games that couldn't get the carts from Atari Age easily, because it's expensive to import stuff into the EU and the UK. So I very carefully took a decision to offer some games digitally. And I found that people really the reaction and the reception to that was really good. And I frequently try to find my games on dodgy sites and see people have been, not genuine about how they're looking after the games that they purchase. And I'm yet to find that. I mean, I dare say, but I tend to find when people are spending a little bit of money for the games, and they're not expensive compared to the physical cards, I think it disincentivizes them to then go and distribute that for free when you've paid for it.
Right.
Yeah. Plus, it's not like we're selling millions of units. That's not the intention. I don't think I ever intended to get rich from doing this. I do it. It's more for fun than for anything else. And also some of the more recent games like EXO and A.R.T.I, stuff like that. I do tend to watermark the ROMs as well. So if ever one did get out into the wild, I'd know pretty quick where it came from.
Okay. So,
sorry, if you don't mind, just commenting on that, something that I've noticed kind of just in the history of, people who just download big packs of ROMs and people who pay for ROMs. The person who's downloading them, if they ever do show up on a dodgy site, is not likely to be somebody who is ever going to give you a cent anyway, even if they couldn't find it for free. So,
exactly,
it's still not good, but
it does bring up a point though that we've said in past episodes. Just really wish there was a way to find a good way to sell these digital copies, because to your point, we all love cartridges, but there's also that convenience of playing on a flash cart or again, some people want to just play on their computer through an emulator, and that's the only option they got. And I think there's so many homebrews that, if that could get a wider audience, if there was a good, reliable digital way to get them out there. And because again, your concerns are the same concerns I hear from so many others. It's like, well, I want to get my game there, but I'm afraid of, I put it out there to sell and someone's going to take it and start distributing it. And it's a very valid concern, because you guys put, a ton of work in that stuff, and you deserve to be compensated for that time. And it just, I wish there was some venue to help get these homebrews out more in a digital format that could be a more secure way. And I don't have the answer, because if I did, I guess I would try to make it. But I just know that is a definite concern, with folks.
Yeah.
Well, one of the reasons I asked this is the popularity of multi-carts. You have the concerto cart. You have the back bit. What other carts are for the 7800 again? Lewis?
For a while, there were very few. There was the concerto, which in its early forms was a very hit and miss with a lot of ROMs. And you were kind of locked into original era 7800 games went up to about 128K. Stuff like Commando had a poker chip on the cart, 128K, 16 kilobytes of RAM. And that was kind of your limit. But then we got a few other products hit the market. Dragonfly come out a few years back, and that really blew the doors off the whole thing. And it was like, you want to do a 512K cart, and you want to have pokey, and you want to have dual pokey, and you want to have RAM, I've got you. And that was really what got me into 7800 development in a big way, because I've got a cart, I can write code, and I can test it on a real system. Emulators are great to a point, especially some really good emulators like A7800. They're very accurate, but there's no substitute for a real platform.
Yeah.
And then Concerto has matured. Concerto is now pretty good for the original era stuff. And if you've got games that are like 128K and below, but then you've also now got things like Backbit, which is another good solution. Again, there are some compatibility issues with some of the more recent homebrew formats. Talking and working with some of the guys that develop the format, people like Mike Sarna, he developed a new format with called bank sets, where you can basically trick the CPU into seeing half the cart as graphics and half the cart as a code area. So it gives you much more resources. You have to be careful how you use them, but there's more resources there. The Backbit doesn't support stuff like that because it's quite new. But then the Game Drive came along. And I mean, Game Drive's got a fantastic pedigree. I think there was a JAG version, a Neo Geo version. And when I heard that there was a 7800 version coming, I thought, wow, this is going to be awesome. And I actually got a test unit. I did some of the testing on it. In fact, I've got that right here. One of the
Retro HQ's all nice. Yeah, no, Retro HQ is amazing with their flash carts. I mean, what they did with the Jaguar, the Neo Geo Pocket, and 7800 Game Drive. I mean, it's without a doubt, if you're in the market for a flash cart right now, the Game Drive's the way to go for the 7800. It has the best compatibility for all this stuff, and they're actively updating it with firmware. Yeah. So like, even if there is something that doesn't work now, I'm sure something will get fixed.
Yeah, and you've got the added bonus. You've got the RGB out. I mean, it's got like it emulates the Maria chip. It basically, I don't know the ins and outs of how it works. I'm guessing it's sniffing the data lines, and then it's pulling that into an emulated Maria, which then outputs via a Mega Drive cable to SCART RGB. And it's like you're playing it on your TV. It's like you're playing an emulator, but this is an actual console. The display is so crisp. It's so good.
Wow.
Yeah, I have mine running through RetroVision cables to a Retro Tank going out to my television, and yeah, it's sharp. So
yeah, it's very, very good.
I forgot. Now
we digressed about 14 times there.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah.
Now, what I wanted to ask you, and I know this isn't a show about emulation. That's kind of a different subject. But you had mentioned the A7800. I noticed that when I was playing, that's what I emulate on when I live stream. I use A7800. It's the most stable emulator for Windows, in my opinion. Problem
Totally agree.
is, there's no save key function with it.
Yep. I think you can actually get high score card emulation, which is equivalent to a save key. But you need the BIOS. You need a HSC BIOS, and then you load that, and then you load the cart on top. So the emulator effectively sees the HSC, the high score cart, as a cart, and then you've got your cart on top.
Oh,
it's hard to describe how to set it up. I did it once, and it was a little bit finicky. But on the Atari Age forums, you'll probably find a step-by-step guide.
Oh, okay. We'll have to
But it
look
can be
into
done.
that.
Cool.
The reason I ask, I love to emulate, and your games are such like the Bernie game and the WILF game and EXO are games that are going to require saving.
Yeah.
And
you need either a high score cart or a save key or an Atari Vox.
yeah, well, but if I'm emulating, I can't do that. I have an Atari Vox, but I can't do it. First of all, until Atari 8 sends me my games, I can't do anything at all. So, but I have to do that. That's good information. I learned something new today. There's something that maybe we can get some more information on exactly where on Atari is what I'm supposed to look at. I'll maybe rewind the tape of what you said, because I can't remember what you just said. Exactly all the details. But but I'm excited to hear that, though, because now doesn't Stella emulate 7800 games?
No, I think that's really just limited to the 2600.
It is.
Yeah.
I thought for sure I saw somewhere that it emulated 7800 games somewhere.
I had never heard that.
Okay.
No.
All right. Okay.
Otherwise, we'd all be playing them on our Retron 77s and not even worried about the 2600
No,
plus.
I'm not. Well, yeah, I guess so.
Should have called it the Retron 86.
Yeah.
Okay. All
So
right.
real quick, so Poe, with Ricky and Vicky, just so you know that if you are wanting a copy of that, you can buy the Steam version, and within the code that's downloaded, the ROM's there, because the maker of that even explains how to get that off. So I think you can probably get it that way if you need it. And I think it's only $5 on Steam or something.
And I think Stone Age Gamer had that licensed as well from the creator. So that's why Atari Age wasn't giving it away with their ones, because they didn't have a licensing agreement, because it is a sole piece of software, so it'd be licensed.
Okay. So now I want to talk about Danger Zone real quick. Now I didn't know what that one was. That's just real quick. I don't have a screenshot of it. I didn't know what it was. It's one of the games I ordered from Atari Age as well. And so I look at it and I see these jets and when you turn it on, and I thought, man, this is going to be really cool, and it is cool. But when I turn it on, I'm seeing all these options. You can change the colors of the plane, and it's like camouflage. You can there are 2 different colors you can change it to.
Getting all worked up.
Yeah, and I'm like, this is going to be an F-16 fighter. First person, a Microsoft flight simulator situation,
It's Combat 2.0.
Yeah, and when I get to it, it was like I was playing Combat, the flight thing, and it's only a 2-player, it's a 2-player game, but it was still cool. I had a lot of fun. I played it for probably 15 minutes today.
It's a good
on
game.
The program. If
you get with friends and beers.
Yes.
It's a great 2-player game. It is. It's an awesome 2-player game. And but what's nice about it, like I said, you can change the colors of the planes, but you can also choose the time of day. You can choose the scoring system.
Clouds move.
What's that?
The clouds move.
The clouds, you can change whether the clouds, how many clouds, whether they're static or whether they move. You can, the scoring system, how much time or how many points. I thought it was really well done. I really liked it. Now it's just a different take on the old combat plane, but it was really cool. I liked it. It was really cool.
Now, I know the reason why, but the only thing that disappointed me about it is the fact that the game is called Danger Zone and there isn't a single Kenny Loggins track in that game.
Yeah, he brought that up in the chat today, too. He brought that up in the chat today, too.
It's on some multi-carts, there is a full Pokey soundtrack, but on some multi-carts it doesn't work properly.
Mm-hmm.
I think on Game Drive and Dragonfly it's okay. But that one we had a 3-channel Pokey and we had 2-channel Tyre with the percussion, so we ended up with a 5-channel audio track on the NTSC version. The PAL version is a bit more challenging because of the timings for the music, but it's kind of Top Gun-ish, but yeah, there's no Kenny Loggins, unfortunately.
We have a question about EXO on the VCS, and it's a very good question. Can you save your progress on the VCS? Currently,
you cannot. Whether that may change in the future, and the reason I say that is the VCS. When you run 7800 games on the VCS, they run under an emulation layer. So basically, it's running something like A7800 or Pro System or whatever. And the version that they're running on doesn't have save states that I'm aware of, but that's something that could get added in the future. The way it works on a real console is the game looks in your second control port to see if you actually have a save key or an Atari Vox connected, or if you're running the high score cart type of device, which never got to market properly. But Game Drive actually emulates a high score cart if you configure it. So if you've got a Game Drive, you don't need a save key. But to answer Jerome's question, right now, no, it does not. But there's not a lot I can do about that either, because it's the VCS is the VCS and the 7800 is the 7800, unfortunately.
That said, and this was something I shared with our group when we were talking about having Lewis on, Argon, I did a video on Argon a little while back, does have EXO, it does have A.R.T.I, and built in, they're save states, but you can save in Argon.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So I do have a question, though. Within the game, if you have a save key, and I'm looking at the instructions, and maybe I see load and save screens. How do you access? It says you're able to load, but it doesn't. I don't see where it says how you access the load and save screen.
So when you go, so when you go to the barracks screen when you start, you got like the screen with the bed, and there's the screen and the door.
Yeah, I remember when you start.
Yeah, so if you click on the bed, that takes you to the save menu.
So does it automatically save your progress every game?
No, you have to go and tell it to manually save.
How do you do that?
So when you complete a world, you then go back to the barracks, and then you can choose your next action. You can choose to go to the little TV screen and view all your cutscenes that you've earned, or you can go click on the bed, and you get 3 save slots. You click a save slot and you can save or load. But you also get a little screen that gives you a summary of what does this save slot contain. So if you haven't played the game for a few months and you forget your progress, it'll tell you what world you've completed, who you've rescued, where you got up to.
That explains it. So you must complete a world before you can access that screen to save.
Yeah.
I got it. All right. That answers that. All right. Okay.
So I guess a couple questions, I have, because I'm always curious whenever we have, fellow creators on, just to kind of get their thought process and everything. It's just like, what was when you decided on the games that you did, and again, like I said, I can tell you're definitely an Activision fan. We all were. I mean, they were some of the best games at the time. And what was the thought process of like, hey, I wanted to make Daredevil, and here's my inspirations why. Here, I wanted to make Tyre Trax next, and here's my inspirations why. just kind of curious of some of your thought process of what made
Yeah.
you choose the games you've done. You know,
I think that's a
and
great
stuff so
question,
far.
Brian. It really is, and there's so many answers to it. I mean, for the 2600 games, Tyre Trax was. I just wanted to make a simple little game. Just pick up and play. No real commitment. You can play for a few minutes. You can put it down. You can be competitive with your friends. It was always about having a few beers and getting the lads round, and you get hyper competitive about the most simple things, you know, and it's fun. Daredevil was an interesting one. I stumbled across a 2600 game called Parachute, and it had the most annoying music. But the game had something that kept me coming back to it. It was kind of like biting on tinfoil. There was something about it was just interesting, and I thought this was almost a good game. And I thought I want to do something that's a bit like this, and that's what gave me Daredevil. Danger Zone was just really a simple homage to combat. I used to play that with my kid brother when we were little, and we always used to play that, and we'd be sitting there with controllers side by side, and then it'd be like, you know, you'd be like, and then you'd end up having a brawl because he'd just shut you down for the fourth time or whatever. EXO, there's a bit of a story to EXO. EXO was actually a Spectrum game that I started designing graphics for back in the day.
Now, see, it's very I don't mean it's interesting you say that, because honestly, the game gives me more of a computer vibe to it. Like, it was
100%.
I mean, that was an old computer game, and whenever I was going through the demo of it, it reminded me a lot of Cybernoid, or if I was maybe playing like an Amiga game, you know, different things like that. So
and I'll say too that just watching today Phil's stream, WILF also looks like an older computer game.
Yeah, which we will want to talk about that game and Lola Lines.
Let him finish the story though.
Yeah, we want to hear these stories.
So EXO, you guys are bang on the money. It was heavily inspired by Cybernoid. I mean, that was a game that I loved on the Spectrum and the 64. And when you play through EXO, there's a hell of a lot of pop culture references and Easter eggs. Stuff like turning the lights on and off. If you do that so many times, you unlock a little Easter egg. So that's a free one. I don't think many people have figured that one out. But
I've seen some switches already too. So maybe
click on stuff. Just absolutely click on stuff.
Okay.
With EXO, the rooms have names, and one of the rooms early on is the Banyan Tree. That's from Jet Set Willy. And then there's another room. The blue one, as you go up on the first world, that's Kekko's Rise, after Raphael Kekko, who wrote Cybernoid. So there are tons and tons throughout the whole 5 worlds of stuff like that. But I originally started EXO as a very simple Cybernoid clone. And then with most games that I tend to start my projects, I got part way in and I thought, I don't want to make a Cybernoid clone. I want to do my own thing. I want to have characters and have it a bit more story driven, and I want to have different worlds. I've got all these nice graphics I've come up with, and I don't want to just be stuck in one place. And so then things expanded and developed, and then we got bosses, and then I discovered Atari Vox. It's like, oh, I can give the bosses speech. So if you've got an Atari Vox plugged in and you're playing on a real 7800, the bosses will trash talk you while you're fighting them. They'll call you a human dirtball, or ask you, mock you for being a mammal and ask if you can play fetch and things like that.
Man.
And the one boss at the very end, he's got a bit of the Hannibal Lecter. When he's just like a head, and when he comes on, you hear him go, I can smell you. And he's blind, but he follows your motion. So yeah. But that was
awesome.
And I will say that's one thing I really appreciate with your games. Again, just with the demos that I've played, because after the show, you and I got to talk, because I want to get your games. So, but with that, like you're obviously paying homage to some of your favorite games that you played growing up and things like that. But you've put enough of a twist on them that they're still their own thing, and that's where you're not just doing a straight port of a game. You're taking the idea, but making it your own idea, and that's awesome with your stuff. So
thank you, thanks. Yeah, I think Koppers was the closest thing to a port that I did, and that was even then that was taking the best versions of the 2600. I took some of the 8-bit versions from the A8. I took some of the Coleco. Phil's wagging his finger.
Well, there's a backstory here because just because we try to say PG-ish related show,
and he knows it. He knows it.
He always likes the Raz Phil about the one game on the 2600, beat 'em and eat 'em. So now he's asking you to make a 7800 homebrew of it. So
shower him and devour him.
I'm covering my mouth to keep from laughing.
Yeah.
I'm not supposed to be laughing on that. That's not funny.
Every time Phil sends us the link, he always says 745 PG.
Yeah.
And Poe always comes and just
I have to remind him every time and pose the reason why. Of course, he's going to give us a reason why right here. He's got to make an excuse.
I don't think that kind of game genre would fit with my graphical style somehow.
You know what? You never know till you try.
Oh man, I don't know if I could stream those on the channel, bro. So I do want to talk about a couple of the games that I streamed today. Mike touched on them. WILF and Lola Lines. Now, those were not games that you have. Now, I think WILF was you got an award from the homebrew award for that, didn't you?
No, I think that was Bernie earlier in.
Oh, it was Bernie.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah. WILF is still a very new. I mean, there's only one very early demo of that out.
Yeah.
The game has progressed a hell of a lot since that demo. That was really just a few screens, introduce the character, show what the game's the style of the game. But that has moved on a hell of a lot, and there's going to be a new demo out of that in a few weeks. The power that the worm gets to bend gravity and jump up and down. I've added in a few more. He can now shoot fireballs, and he can do all kinds of other stuff as well. So that one's coming along, but that one's still quite early days. That one's got a way to go yet. Bernie's a bit more mature.
I really like the gameplay, though. I love how the worm's really little, but how he has to get around and the mechanics of how he can anti-gravity, how he can climb on the ceiling and whatnot. So it's really cool.
It's a much more calm VVV I found.
Yeah. And I wanted something that was just chill to play, that wasn't
you're
not kind of you don't need to have twitch reflexes like an F-16 pilot. It was just something you can just chill, you can play, you can learn the game, and it's just fun.
Yeah, this isn't Danger Zone. We want to be chill.
Yeah, this is Chill Zone. Yeah. But the thing with WILF, which it's not in the demo, but it will be in the next demo. I've put in a system. I love saves, right? I mean, every game has a save function. With WILF, you can earn badges like Steam achievements while you play, and you save them. So if you get killed by fire, you get the achievement for that. You get killed by earth, you get that. You get killed by earth, wind, and fire, you get the September achievement.
Oh,
so it's stuff like that. There's going to be about 50 or 60 little fun things you can find out in the game.
Well, Phil, you were killed by 2 of those earlier today.
I got killed by everything, I thought.
I will say, that was my first time seeing WILF. I haven't played the demo. But I was watching Phil's stream today. I quite often watch Phil's streams. And I really just loved, especially for a 7800 game, the care that was put to make that little worm die in the proper way. Like he'd catch on fire, and then you got this little flaming worm, and then he turns to ash. That was really cool. It's those little bits that I love.
Yeah. You didn't see that in too many 7800 games at all. So yeah,
he could almost have his own little montage of dumb ways to die for WILF.
Yes.
In terms of the character, out of all of the games all of the projects I've done so far, that one has the most character animation that I've ever attempted, and I almost got thinking at one point, have I bitten off more than I can chew? But
Mm.
because he's so small, I can fit lots in. I mean, at the moment,
Yeah.
I think there's about 80 frames of animation for WILF alone.
That's very cool.
It looks great.
And
It looks great.
And
It
like,
plays.
you didn't see that. You didn't see that on the 7800. You didn't see that on the NES. You barely saw that on the Super Nintendo Genesis era. It was after that you started to get like all these unique kind of animation bits.
Well, this next game I'm going to mention, we saw the same worm in this next game.
Yeah, he makes a cameo appearance.
He makes a cameo in this next game. Lola Lines, talk to us about that game. What is that?
So, I think I've mentioned in the forums on Atari Age, I think I must have been living under a rock for about 6 months, and I'd not noticed all these 2D Paku games popping up. I'm going to take a look.
There's been a tsunami of them lately.
Yeah, absolutely. And I saw a few, and I thought, these look really not much fun. And I played one, and then an hour later, I realized I was still playing it, and it's like, oh my god, this is like crack. This is so addictive.
It's addictive. Yeah,
it's fun. It's silly and it's fun. And then I saw James on Zero Page Homebrew has been programming a 2600 version, which was cool. Then I saw Lawrence on the Jaguar, Corino Jones. He put up a version using the assets from his new upcoming game, Moth Lines. And I thought, you know what, I could make one with my Bernie assets. I mean, I'm not going to have to sit and make loads of graphics. I've got stuff lying around. And if you dissect the Lola Lines screen, you've got landscape elements from WILF. You've got the bottle power up from Bernie. You've got a tank from Bernie. You've got the character is a modified version of the intro to Bernie when the picture of his kid. That's actually the kid, but with some extra pixels.
Okay.
So I've just recycled all these other little bits and pieces from other games and threw them together.
And WILF crawls along the top.
Yeah, I'd already got the animation. I've got a few spare bytes to throw him in. It was requested. People like WILF, so it's all good. I think end to end, the whole thing took about 6 hours to throw together.
It looks and plays great. I actually played Packline late last week. I like playing your version better. I did. I like playing it a lot better. Yeah, it was awesome.
I do have an update actually, which I'm going to pop out in the next day or two, just with some extra colours, and the tank guy that you have to avoid. He gets quicker the more levels you go on, just to make it a bit more challenging.
Oh, okay.
It gets a bit,
more challenging.
Yeah. Phil doesn't need that.
I don't need it more challenging. That's one thing. Your games are very challenging and very unforgiving. You really have to be on your toes, especially if you don't have a save key. You better be on your toes.
I saw your struggles with the XO, Phil, and I mean, my word.
Well, I didn't read the instructions like I should have. So
I was going to say that's a case of RYFM on that one, I think.
Yeah, that was on me. That was.
You should
bad.
see us half the time. We yell at him in his chat, and he doesn't look over until after. Yeah. He'll ask a question. He'll ask the chat question. How do I do this? And then not look at chat.
Well, it's a rhetorical question, really, because I'm not really wanting to know from y'all, but I really kind of did. Actually, I'm trying to work out a thing where I have somebody, whether it be Mike or somebody who knows how to play these games, or how they have experience with gaming, be on while I'm playing, not like physically their face,
Discord voice kind of
thing. Not their voice and their face on there,
like a player coach.
Yeah, they can.
At the moment you say that, I'm like picturing like Mike's just his face only. Yeah, you only see his face in the upper right corner. No, Phil, do this. No, Phil, this way.
Steve coming out of his ears. I told you.
It's just an animated GIF of me like this.
Yeah, I know. And he's like, hand me the controls. I can. I'm in Cincinnati. You're in Canada.
Although this man plays a mean game of Copter Command.
Yeah.
Or Chopper Command or whatever. Yeah.
Chopper Command. Well, I can play Copter Command as well. I could beat that too.
So another question, because anymore we gotta ask this one now. It's a simple one. It's just does your physical games work on the 2600 plus?
Yes. Not. Mm,
I'm assuming you need the firmware update.
yeah. You need all the latest
Yeah.
ROM dumper and the firmware. I know that they will work if you put them on a multi-cart, because stuff like the Dragonfly, you can put it into single cart mode. So you can load up a ROM image and it acts like a cart, and then you can pop that in a 2600 plus, and I believe that will work for all of the games. The actual carts, I'm not sure. I think there's some compatibility testing that's ongoing with that.
Okay.
Koppers, probably yes. 2048, definitely, because that's simple. A.R.T.I and EXO, that's question marks. I'd like to say yes.
Okay. Yeah, because I just know as we're buying this stuff now, the 2600 plus, because again, it's for what it is, it's a good unit, and now we have a lot more people with that being a primary device. It's just that's always a question I always want to ask the programmers when they're on, is just so people are aware, like, hey, because right now that's always that guessing games, like, can it work? Can it not? So.
Yeah.
Well, and it's the same when I review any homebrew, or when Phil plays any of these homebrews. There's always people in the chat. Will this play on the plus? Will this play on the plus?
Yeah. I mean, the ROM itself, with the latest firmware and all of that stuff, the ROMs will work on the plus, no problem. But it's getting them into the plus via the cart or some other multi-cart method. Most multi-carts don't work. I know the Dragonfly does when it's in single cart mode. And I think there are some versions of the Concerto, or there's something coming with the Concerto that will work for some games. But the actual standalone carts, you know what? I can probably test that, because I've got an A.R.T.I prototype cart here that Al sent me for some testing. And I've got a 2600 plus as well, so I can probably chuck that in tomorrow and test it.
Okay.
That'll answer a question for sure.
Yeah, no,
really, Brian, we need you to crack the SD card on the main circuit board.
Oh yeah.
So we have someone asking, out of all the games you've made, what's your favorite?
Oh Lord, that's like saying who's your favorite child. That's a horrible question.
Yeah, but everybody has one.
You're in trouble now. You better hope the family's not watching, Mike.
Yeah, but I make sure that every single one of them thinks it's them.
I would say EXO. If I was pushed to make a call, I'd say EXO. And I'd say the reason for that, my other games, Koppers, A.R.T.I, and so on, I love them all for different reasons. But EXO was the one. That game was an absolute journey. I mean, it was a year and a half on and off to make that. It was nearly 2 years, all said and done. And looking back now, I would say it was hugely ambitious at the time. And if I knew now if I knew then what I know now, I would have not done it. I would have stopped very early in that process, because that ended up being a 512k cart with 20 tunes, 5 worlds, 100 screens, and it was a monumental task for probably a novice programmer, which I would have considered myself to be back then. So the fact that I got that out the door and it actually works and it's a fun game, I'd say that's my favorite for those reasons.
It's such a good game. I would argue, of the ones that I've played, it's my favorite of your games. Mind you, I haven't played WILF, and when I was watching it today, I really want to play WILF. It looks like my kind of game.
For sure. Now, I want to ask you a question too. Brian actually touched on it prior to us coming on. We haven't talked about it. In some of the credits, now, first of all, I'm a musician, and in some of the credits, you've had other people do the music, but then I've seen in some of the credits you've done some of the music. Are you a musician?
No, hell no.
Well, I've wanted that, because in some of the credits you've done some of the music in them.
Sound effects mostly.
Sound effects. Okay.
I tried to do. I did the music in Daredevil on the parachuting jump off screen, the little kind of semi rendition of Mission Impossible. That's the limit of my musical
Okay, that's not too tough. That's like smoke on the water or something, right?
when I try to go beyond that, someone actually described it. It sounded like someone was sticking a dentist drill in a cat's cavity. Keeping it with PG language, or a hot poker in a sensitive area. And I thought, you know what, they've got a point. And I didn't bother with music after that. I was fortunate that with a lot of my games, I get to work with some really, really talented musicians, like Bobby Clark and Micah. He's over in Poland. Bobby's in the US. And these guys are absolute maestros. They can make the pokey chip they can make it sing. They can make it some of the sounds that come out of it. When I get the music, I give them a brief. I show them graphics. This is what I'm doing. Here's some animation, and they fit the music around what I'm creating. So it's really creations coming together. When I listen to them, it's like, wow, that's amazing. How have you done that? I have the easy part. I then just have to make the game play the tune at the right time. That's the easy bit. They do all the hard work on that.
So, and yet you passed on the option to work with Kenny Loggins on Danger Zone.
So you've worked with these guys on the music, and you've done the coding as far as the game itself, the graphics and the sprites. What other people have you had working with you, if any?
So occasionally a piece of art or a piece of graphics with another contributor. So for example, on Koppers, when you get the game over screen, my daughter drew that. She's a graphic artist.
Nice.
2048, she did all the box art as well. So occasionally other folks will contribute maybe a sprite or a screen. I always like to mention one gentleman, Mike Sarner. He's an absolute 7800 guru. So if I get a problem with the program, I can shoot Mike a message and we can have a chat, and pretty soon I'm on my way. I've got a solution, and I'm back in the groove, and I'm bombing on again. I often credit him as my code guru because he is legitimately a code guru. This guy has got a brain the size of a planet, and I have so much time and respect for Mike. He's just an absolute master of the 7800. And then the test guys, I mean, they contribute little things, little observations that help me to add polish. So here's a good example of that. In EXO, when you move your ship, you get the little engine flicker. One of the testers suggested that. He said, this would be really cool. Can you do that? I was like, I've got probably just enough cycles and enough graphics budget to fit that in and make it not kill the game. So they come up with little suggestions like that, and I can put it in, and that's polished. So people contribute in different ways.
Excellent. Very nice. If you need any testers, let me know.
Oh, hell yeah. We're always looking for people to murder the code. In
I'll
fact,
try to read the instructions this time, though.
Yeah, you mentioned about EXO.
That's important, Phil.
Yeah, I know it's real important, but I was trying to really rush and trying to squeeze all this in, like I said prior. But yeah, the WILF game looks really good. Now, the Lola Lines I wanted to ask you about, is that something that you're going to publish?
Probably not on cart. I think the final ROM, I'll just probably put that up for free for people to download. I'm very much a believer of, I don't think every game has to be commercialized. I think sometimes it's nice to just give some stuff for free. 2048, I gave that for free. Again, that was another one. It was a quick port. If people wanted to donate some money, I read a really interesting article about people with Alzheimer's and other kind of cognitive troubles, and those type of games really help them. And I said, if you don't want to buy the game, donate $5 to an Alzheimer's charity, and any royalties I got from the cart version, I've donated those to an Alzheimer's charity as well. So it's just, you don't have to charge for everything. You can just give some stuff away. That's a good thing to do as well.
Yeah, and even I would say my perspective of that too is if it's a smaller game, even if you want to commercialize it, you can commercialize it again in that ROM form, sell the ROM. Not everything needs to be on a cart.
Yeah. So you programmed for VIC-20, and what other system did you program for back in the day?
ZX Spectrum. Those were my two where I Cut my
Okay.
teeth. Yeah.
Okay.
I used to program a little bit at college. When I was at college, we did. It was very much like old-fashioned computer systems. You will learn to program in Pascal and COBOL and stuff like this. And if anyone's ever programmed in COBOL, you know it's a horrific language for databases and all that stuff. But Pascal was good fun, and I always used to get in trouble with my tutors because we'd get an assignment. It was like, write a program that calculates how much petrol or gas a truck's going to use to travel this many miles, and you got miles, gas consumption rate, blah blah blah. So rather than just write a program that did that, I'd write a program that has a little graphic of a truck that trundles along and with clouds, and be like, we didn't ask you for clouds in the truck. We asked you to calculate. I'd get in all kinds of trouble with my tutor for scope creep. I was doing scope creep at an early age.
Well, I know we're starting to get out of time here, but there was two questions I wanted to get to you here yet. Was just, I know you're mainly focused on Atari 7800 games now, and I get it because you can do a lot more with them than you can with the 2600. Do you have any plans to go back to the 2600 on anything, or are you just kind of 7800 only moving forward?
I have a little bit of unfinished business with the 2600, and there is a project that I want to do. Probably going to be not yet. Probably for maybe for next year. That's going backwards. Going forwards, I also have some projects that I want to do on the Jaguar, so that will be something that's coming up.
I love Jaguar Homebrew.
Yep.
Definitely.
Which was really going to be my last question. It's like, what other secret projects can you maybe make unsecret tonight? To let us know that you're working on.
We like scoops,
and it sounds like you're looking to dabble to the Jaguar a little bit.
Well, I've got the bones of a Koppers port for the Jag.
Okay,
that's working. That will probably see the light of day later in the year. And again, that's one that I don't think it'll be commercialized. I think it'll just be, if people want to take it and play it, then that's great. And I do have another Jag project that's bubbling along as well, but that'll be a bit later, probably late in this year. Right now, I've got my hands full with WILF and with Bernie. They're going to be complete probably in the summer. And there's a sequel coming for one of my other games, but that will be later in the year as well.
Before you go, just one more game we didn't touch on. I want you to talk to us a little bit about the Bernie game. We didn't talk about that one. I forgot to ask you about that one.
Yeah, Bernie was really just my idea of an arcade puzzle game. It's not a Mario platformer. It's very tile based, and I just wanted to do something that was fun and chill. Didn't require super twitch reflexes, but you're required to be engaged and think about it. And some of the levels are a bit puzzly, some are a bit arcadey. But again, with a lot of my games, I like to put a story in there. I like to some characters, and but that's one that's I've actually working on that today. I haven't worked on it for a while. I never start a game and then see it through to completion. I kind of take it so far, then park it so I don't get bored. And I've always got a couple of projects going on, so I'm getting frustrated with that. I can go here instead, and I can work, and then I can go back. So Bernie and WILF is the current cadence.
I got it.
Very cool.
So, have you ever done any coding for the NES or the Super NES? Monterrance is asking.
That's a great question. I have not. The NES was always a system I found quite fascinating, and even now, I think there's a good homebrew scene for that.
There's a great homebrew scene for the NES. Yeah.
And I often look at the NES and also the Atari Lynx, and I think that's another one with a really good emerging homebrew scene. There's loads of really great games coming on both of those platforms. But I think if ever I get around to retiring or I win the lottery and I can program full time just for fun, then maybe I'll have the time to look at the NES.
Yeah.
Oh, very cool. Yeah.
Unseen is really good.
Excellent.
No, I'm with you, Cannabis. I would love to see some more paddle homebrews because we haven't really. I mean, I think you had Circus Atari ported to the 7800 with paddle, but we haven't really seen, I think, anything much beyond that. I could be wrong on that, but But again, I love playing paddle games.
But I'd love to see something like Super Sprint, that kind of top-down racing.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That'd be really good.
Off-road kind of, yeah.
That would be amazing. Would that require a spinner, though?
You'd probably need the driving. Well, yeah, you probably want.
It doesn't require it, but you want it.
Yeah.
It'd probably work with. I mean, you could probably make it work with the joypad or the paddle, but the driving controller would probably be better.
Yeah, I mean, with the paddle, you would just make the resistance very tight. So where you're not having to move the paddle too much to make it do the complete turns.
Okay.
But,
well, I've got a few other people saying hello, and Montanus was just asking because he said there are a lot of people on YouTube who like to see NES hacks and homebrews, and he just was curious about that. And Jerome said he was he likes to see what the 7800 is capable of and pushing the limits of the system. So, all right, with that, appreciate you being here, Lewis. We've had a great show. As always, I'm looking forward to the release of WILF and Bernie and the release of Lola Lines. That's going to be fun. I know that there's a version of these out there for people to get already, but I really liked your version for the 7800. It was really fun to play today. I had a bunch of fun with that. I almost didn't want to stop playing that one, but I wanted to keep playing.
It gets addictive.
Yeah, it was very addictive. So anyway.
We need a lock 'em sock 'em. We need a lock and chase version called Lock 'em sock 'em.
That would be cool. That would be very cool. I think there's a mousetrap version coming out as well, which looks by Daryl. I mean, Daryl makes some amazing games. He made the Popeye Homebrew. I mean, Daryl's a really good guy, and he's an absolutely stellar programmer. And his mousetrap version looks pretty good as well.
Okay. Well, listen, guys, appreciate you. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Appreciate you being here. And next week we'll have a podcast. We don't know what the subject matter is quite yet.
Yes, we do.
What is it?
It's a reunion show.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay. For those of you who are familiar with the program, I'm sorry, I didn't have it in the notes. We're going to have the YouTuber of the month reunion show with Mike from Mike's Gaming Gala, Dr. Scott, Mr. Poststyle, myself, and
Ballistic Coffee Boy.
Ballistic Coffee Boy. That's right. I got to remind him just in case. Just in case. But anyway, it should be a fun show. So with that, you guys have a great week, and we'll see you next week on Retro Bliss Rewind. Take care, guys.
See you guys.
Thanks, Lewis.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.